Um, it's my privilege to welcome and introduce Jaune Quick-to-See Smith and her son, Neal Inuksois Ambrose Smith, to join us here today. I'm going to read their bios really quickly, just for those of you who might be unfamiliar with their practices, and then you'll be treated to them speaking from their studio in New Mexico. So first, Jaune Quick-to-See Smith refers to herself as a cultural arts worker. She uses humor and satire to examine myths, stereotypes, and the paradox of Indigenous life in contrast to the consumerism of American society. Her work is philosophically centered by her strong traditional beliefs and political activism. Smith is internationally known as an artist, curator, lecturer, printmaker, and freelance professor, as well as a mentor, for she believes that giving back is a life philosophy. She was born in the St. Ignatius Mission, raised by her father, who was an illiterate horse trader, and began working as a field hand at age 8. Smith earned an art education degree from Framingham State University in Massachusetts and a Master's of Art at the University of New Mexico. She has organized and curated more than 30 Native exhibitions in over 40 plus years. She has given more than 200 lectures at museums and universities internationally and is shown in more than 125 solo exhibitions and more than 650 group exhibitions. Her work is in collections such as the Victoria Albert Museum in London, the Brooklyn Museum, the Whitney Museum of American Art, the Walker Art Center, Berlin Museum of Ethnology, the University of Regina Museum, and the Museum of Modern Art. Smith holds 5 honorary degrees and has received numerous awards, including the American Academy of Art and Letters Purchase Award, the 1995 Painting Award, the 1996 Joan Mitchell Foundation Award, 1997 Women's Caucus for Art Lifetime Achievement Award, and the 2005 New Mexico Governor's Award. Neal Inuksois Ambrose Smith works in a variety of media such as sculpture, painting, and printmaking, and has had a 30-plus career as an artist. His work is focused on pop, Star Wars, comic books, coyote stories, and commercial ads influenced by Andy Warhol. He has worked as a studio assistant to his mother and artist Jaune Quick-to-See Smith in the 80s and 90s, digitally designing embeds for the Denver Airport Floor Public Art Commission. In 2000, Ambrose Smith began several years of mentorship of non-solvent printmaking with Keith Howard, which led him to earning his MFA degree in alternative printmaking at the University of New Mexico. Ambrose Smith has shown his prints internationally in South Korea, France, Ireland, and many other places, including universities and museums across the United States. He has taught alternative printmaking workshops at many universities and conferences over more than a decade. Throughout the 90s and 2000s, Ambrose Smith collaborated on many sculptures with his mother, one of which is in the exhibition here at the Heard Museum. He worked with the Joan Mitchell Foundation's CALL program, creating a living legacy in New York from 2010 to 2014 as a consultant. Currently, he is the chair of the art department at the Institute of American Indian Arts in Santa Fe, where he heads and is resurrecting the printmaking program starting in 2015. His work is in many collections, including the New York Public Library print collection, the Smithsonian National Museum of the American Indian in Washington, Flint Institute in Michigan, Denver Art Museum, and the Eiteljorg Museum of American Indians and Western Art, among others. So without further ado, I'd like to turn it over to Jaune and Neal, and I'll join you after the tour. Again, thank you so much for joining us and enjoy the show.
Go ahead.
Woof.
Good afternoon. We're here in the land of the Navajo, Apache, Pueblo peoples. There are 23 tribes here, and we are grateful to be here in their lands. And we want to thank you for being here this afternoon as well. It's a cold, snowy afternoon here in New Mexico, and the light changed since we had our practice yesterday. So we have a new lighting situation in here. I'm working on several projects at once. So I'm just going to give you a quick run through about the sections of the studio. It's about 40 by 60 feet here. And I have a fairly good library here, and also in another room next to this. I've been working on lithographs here. And so you can see a recent one from Cameron here that is finished and was for the Collectors Club. And then I'm working on another one here that's about 5 feet tall. And then I have a stone here, and some of my older drawings are here, but you can see where some of the ideas come from. So like I have, oh, this is one here. Yeah, these are rabbits that are actually Easter bunnies from the Philippines that were used to make paper mache Easter rabbits in the 1930s or something. So they're really hard to find, but I love the carving and love the shapes of them. I have a collection of Mexican masks. This is really supposed to be a dog, I think, but I've actually used it in my prints. I've used it as let me see. I've used it as a skunk. So, oh, here he is. He's right here. Here, and actually he's swearing about the environment, because this is about the environment. I have a lot of animals that swear in my drawings. And then right here is something that I wanted to show you, because this I found in Old Town, and I just love this sculpture. And so I've been using this in my drawings, prints, and also you can see right here, you can see the figure in here. This was not the oppressed. What was the title, Neal? Do you remember? Oh,
Imperialism.
Imperialism. Oh, yes. How could I forget that? Oh my gosh. So yeah, but I love, see, his foot is on the head of the skull. Situations that we might have in America right now. And of course, so I always have skeletons in my work. I love Frida Kahlo and the Mexican artists and Jose Guadalupe Posada. I have books on them. So I have that. Here's somebody who's dancing. And then this is an old pastel drawing here. You can see here's another dancing figure here. And then I'm working on map paintings. I've done a lot of maps. These are like, this is an old state names map in this catalog. And then I'm also doing some drawings and working about ideas for beadwork. This is fry bread. This is going to go in a Magritte cake stand that normally would be a piece of cheese, but it's going to say fry bread. And then Linda King, who's our best beader at Salish Kootenai, did these. These are like, look, can you see this? It sparkles, it's cut beads. These are seed beads. Oh man, she's such a good beater. Like, oh, like, look, I took the maps that I have here in the room, she, her, hers, which is Mother Earth, and stolen. And look, oh my gosh, this is so exciting. I've got 4 of these maps in here. I'm working on some more ideas to do with that. And then I had a little sculpture of a coyote that I made out of clay. And my ingenious son said, Mom, you should blow that up. And so this is the beginning of a larger sculpture. And I'm going to paint this. But then there's a bronze being cast in upstate New York. So these are in process. They're not done yet. So this is America. And this is No Mas Finito, Ciao, Au revoir. It's a goodbye painting. Goodbye to, oh, the year 2020, goodbye. You could think of lots of things you're going to say goodbye to. So it's cheerio, take it easy, the end, last one, see you. It's got that. This is about Americans, Native Americans, all over the United States. And these are friends of ours that are there. And of course, stolen land, she, her, hers. And there's some more back here about the military in America controlling a lot of things here, including the budget. So anyway, thank you.
So we're going to switch cameras. And we're going to switch to the laptop. So we're going to hit this here. Super duper. Oh, nope, that's not it. Okay. Go ahead. I think I know who that is.
You do? I had gone to see a movie in town, Toulouse-Lautrec, with the Japanese family that I worked for, and I was so moved because I wanted to be an artist, but I didn't really know what it was. And so when I saw that all the men in the movie were artists, just the men, I thought, okay, if I dress up like a man, maybe I could become an artist too, because there were no women there who were artists. I came home and got my dad's axle grease and put it on my chin, got the neighbor man down the road to take a picture of me with the brownie camera. So this is a little brownie picture, so that I could become an artist. And then later, when I was 16, I took my part of my bean picking, rhubarb harvesting money, and my dad let me use that and send away for the famous artist course in the matchbook cover. And they were all men, and they were all smoking cigarettes, all the teachers for that course. So I took up smoking because I thought, okay, so maybe that will help me become an artist. So there were a series of steps that I took toward becoming an artist.
Jaune, at what point in your career did you really view?
I did a whole series in 1981 that they were shown in New York, called the Sight Series. And I went around all over the country, even into Canada, and chose Native American sites to commemorate in these paintings. So this is just one of the paintings. Right now, they're all lost and we don't know where they are. 48 by 72, 1981.
Next.
The Child Within is my sister, a story about my sister who unfortunately passed away a few years ago from alcoholism. And so I made this painting about the child within because she never seemed to grow up. Next. 48 by 72, 48 by 72. Fear. There was so much fear about people of color in this country, still is, that I made a painting about it, and also fear of women. And so this is a painting about fear of women. And I just simply titled it Fear, but it's about that. And we're seeing a little bit of change here with Biden's choices and our new which I'm so excited about. Next. Hold fast to the old ways is a combination of small bits and pieces of life today and life yesterday. And there are tiny bits of text in this. It's at the museum in Lincoln, Nebraska.
Somewhere over there.
Yeah.
I have to say, looking at Jean's paintings throughout her career, there's this incredible freedom and explosion of exploration in materials. And this is a case in point where you've spray painted. There's airbrush in the painting.
There is.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. I mean, it's, most artists get stuck in a process or a method, like they drink whiskey, smoke cigarettes, and paint all night. But you spent your career reaching out and grabbing whatever you could find that's close and turning it into something. What can I make out of this? What can I do with this? And it's, as a child, it was amazing to watch. Anyway, I just want to throw that in there.
Well, I just want to say that, like, I have that idea sometimes, so I would like to try this, or I would like to do that. And then you'll say, okay, Mom, I'll bring you my airbrush.
Yeah.
And that's how it gets done.
What's collaboration? Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
there's always bananas over here.
Yes, that's true.
Yeah. Next slide.
Ah, there's the painting that's standing in the studio over here.
That we can't remember the name.
I can't remember the name. And it always looks better on here.
Well, yeah, there's a lot. It's got good lighting.
Yes.
I don't know
that's
how
true.
they do that online.
Yeah. Next, please. Tree of life. It's my thing. I've been doing a lot of reading about trees and how trees move next to each other. All sorts of kind of, I don't want to say human kinds of things about trees, but like how trees will nurture one another, and also how when they drop seed, drop at a certain distance. The pinions used to do that. Oh, there's so many incredible things about trees. And I'm showing a human here that's connected to a tree, that's part of a tree, because our DNA is in the tree and the tree is in us. This is what we don't learn, and we really need to learn in school. So this is all about the tree and us, and we hear more about that now.
Well, there was a TED Talks recently on NPR where the scientist, she was studying the trees and how they talk to each other and through these microfibers of fungus underground, and that they're communicating and telling each other there's a forest fire or there's a bark beetle, or if somebody's in need, that they send resources to that particular tree.
Oh yeah, that's true.
But what you're saying here is, something that's been understood by tribes or tribal people throughout the world.
Absolutely.
And only now science is backing it up.
Yes. Oh, that's wonderful. Thank you, Neal.
Good job. Next slide.
Yes. Well, this is one of the early maps I did in either the late 80s or the early 1990s. I know that Jasper Johns is, he's done a lot with maps, but these are Indian maps. This is an Indian map. This is called Indian Country Today, and it shows tribal happenings in every state all over the United States. Actually, right now, we don't know where this map is. And if anybody out there knows where this map is,
put it in the
contact
chat.
us. Please, thank you.
Next.
And the eye of the storm, there were all these hurricanes and tornadoes coming in, all in the southern part of the United States. And I just had to make this picture painting about that. So, and the cat that's there is actually a sculpture a Mississippian sculpture that you see a lot in the books, and I turned it into a female cat. Notice that it's a lady. But then I also have usually Walt Disney, notice down in the left-hand corner, and and there's Wilfredo Lom, a bird coming out of that storm. So what it's showing us is that there are lots of other things that are affected by any storm that comes in, besides people's houses and the trees. Many, many other things are affected by these storms, and they're getting worse. And so this is about the environment.
Next. Oops. This is a funny story. Jean had this idea of making a canoe, a large canoe, in December of 2017. And I was really, really busy at the time. And I was trying to put it off. You know how in a relationship, you try to avoid something by not talking about it. And, but she kept talking about it. And so we ended up like doing it. I went to the hardware store and grabbed lumber and ripped it down to these thin little slats. And then I used a laser cutter at school actually to make the ribs so that there was some kind of accuracy for the structure. And then we just sewed it up with fake sinew, which is great. I love fake sinew, lasts forever. And then we had Delight Telewepi. She's Hopi, and I work with her at IAIA, and I asked her if she could make us fry bread, and she made all that fry bread.
Mm-hmm. And she blessed it too. Yeah,
I think there was things happening in her family at the time, and so it was really cathartic for her.
Mm-hmm.
And so we ended up doing 2 canoes. This is one of the canoes. So both canoes are sort of medicinal canoes in a lot of ways. But Jean's been doing canoes in her paintings for a long time as trade canoes, about taking some things and giving them back.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Trade. That's what trade is about. Mm-hmm. And those canoes used to come upriver with smallpox blankets, blankets smeared with smallpox, because that was part of the government's plan to get rid of us. I mean, there are multiple plans, like we could talk about a lot of other plans, but this is one. And so they would come upriver, the trade canoes, and they would have wormy beef, and they would have moldy flour and whiskey laced with lead, and oh my gosh, all this stuff that they put together to trade with us, to take our land and keep us from harvesting our food and moving across the land, because the white people wanted the land. So now what I've been doing with these canoes is putting things in them that I would like to return. So I'm doing a reversal. And after all, my tribe is a trading tribe. Our whole tribe is, and our cousin, Grandpa Art, my dad, everybody, our grandmothers, everybody was a trader, and that was what we did. We did that way before the white people came, actually. And then after the white people came, we ran, our family did run salt trains up into Canada. So that's how we became part Métis too. And because there was, little intermixing there.
No way, that
social.
That doesn't happen.
Thing. Yeah. So, but anyway, so these trade canoes have been a major focus to talk about the environment, talk about human rights, talk about the mascots, and here our friend Stephen Deal, who made a chair out of fry bread, and he also worried about heart condition from fry bread. And so he used to preach about the dangers of fry bread, how dangerous it is for people to eat fry bread. So because it's made out of the the moldy flour and the grease that the white people gave us in the beginning. That's where fry bread came from. We're using it here to speak about Native American health.
Actually, we made a sculpture for the Smithsonian for a time capsule, which it didn't go into the time capsule back in 98, 99.
Yeah.
And there was a piece of fry bread that we put in as the stomach
Oh, yeah.
of this dancer, a warrior for
Yes.
the 21st warrior for the 21st century.
Absolutely.
And
Yeah, you put it between two pieces of plexiglass.
right.
Yeah.
And it stayed there. And
Yeah.
you know, everybody has mice and that sort of thing. And the mice come in the studio and we'll find little turds that are cadmium yellow,
Turquoise,
and
they like turquoise.
Yeah, turquoise is nice. Cobalt, right?
yeah.
All these heavy metals. They leave these multicolored turds around,
Yeah.
you know. They eat
the
paint, they eat everything, but they wouldn't
not
eat the
touch
fry
the
bread.
fry bread. They won't touch the fry bread. I mean, that should tell you something. And then we had a fry bread from 1998 that we hung on the wall in the other room, and it stayed there for 10 years.
Right. Yeah, it did. Because we had two pieces, one for the sculpture and a spare.
And it turned into a leather-like form.
Yeah.
And so people were afraid that, bugs were going to get into our canoe here to get the fry bread. Not to worry. This is better than, what do you call that stuff?
It's the perfect.
Roundup. It's better than Roundup.
It's the perfect preservative.
It works.
That's right. So let that be a lesson, kids. Don't eat lard.
Yeah, that's right.
It'll turn you into fry bread.
Yes.
Okay, next slide. Oh, okay. Well, this is mine. And the title of this piece is something like Seishlupen Squalu, which is Salish for, now that's a coyote story. And it goes back to my mark making of just as a child, where I would watch Jaune in the studio drag charcoal up and down a piece of paper, and I would watch those marks and how she made marks. And I think I ended up doing that for the rest of my life, is just kind of following those footsteps, making marks. And so I got this new iPad to teach school at IA this semester, and it was going to be online. So I needed to buckle down with some new technology. And I was drawing on it, and I drew these marks on there. And then got the opportunity to do a show at 516 in the spring of 2021. And so they said, hey, do something for this big wall. And so I said, oh, well, I've got this idea. I want to make another neon piece. So I have this neon teepee that I made in 2009. That's it's at the Albuquerque Museum right now. And it was a riff on Piero Calzolori's teepee that he did in 71. Well, it wasn't a teepee, it was a triangle. But when I saw it in an AE book, it looked exactly like a teepee to me, because, you know, identity is 9/10 of the law. And but it said abstract in your home across the center in text, which I thought was perfect. And so all I did was put an ear flap on it and a couple of poles. In fact, I forgot about the ear flap, and when I showed it to Jaune, she was like, oh, you have to put an ear flap on there, then it's a teepee. And I was like, oh yeah. So again, another example of artists in collaboration. But I had worked with this Robert Randazzo at Absolutely Neon in Albuquerque, and to do that teepee. And so I went and talked to him about doing this piece, and he said, well, you know, it looks pretty complicated, but let's take another look. Why don't you mock it up? So I made this maquette in the next slide, and and it's actually welding wire. It looks like copper, but it's welding wire. So it was really horrible to bend. And I plugged it into these boxes. And so we decided to make the boxes, which is like a cabinet to mount all the neon on. They're 5 feet by 5 feet. So the piece is going to be 10 feet high and 15 feet long. And it's actually about a foot deep to hold mechanical things on the inside. And it's going to have 4 colors of neon. And so in the next slide, you'll see that there's some relief to the neon. So the neon doesn't just sit flat, it weaves in and out of itself, and it's a knot. It's not just a mark, but it's a knot. And through this whole process of coming up with this idea, making the drawing, and then making this maquette, I realized that I'm coming out of 4 years of tension and anxiety and stress and not understanding where to put it or who to talk to exactly about it, because I think a lot of it comes from the administration and the senior member of the staff there, and that there's no adults, there's nobody like in charge really, and all these years that I've spent being a child and learning what's right and wrong, and growing up and trying to be civil with other people and to coalesce and to make things better, and then to do the same with my children. You step up, turn around, and lift up, you bring forward. And as an educator, I'm definitely like a pro-life human being, because I educate and I teach and I work with children, and I'm helping save lives. But that's not what's happening, like the last 4 years, that things are just being slashed and burned and destroyed. And when I started working on this piece, I was at the hardware store trying to get lumber cut, and this guy cuts in front of me with no mask on, and he's got a sidearm, a 45, just hung, like slung in leather holster. It's not even a holster, it was just a strip of leather, so it wasn't even a safety or anything, and tries to get a piece of wood cut with the personnel at the store. And it's amazing to me that like, why there are people around the world that live in poverty and bombs every day. These kids, they grow up with explosions. I mean, that's part of their life. We don't have that here. So why do you want to bring that here? Why do you need a sidearm in a public store, in a hardware store? Like, what's going to happen? What is happening here? And I think that's systemic. I think that's connected. It's related to that. Like, nothing happens independently. Everything's connected. All things are connected. There's an action for every action. There's a reaction. It's Newton's third law. You dig a hole in the ground, your horse is going to put their foot in it and they're going to break their leg. You can't just leave the hole in the ground. So anyway, I realized that that's what this piece is. It's this like knot of my attention and everything. And so as I started working through the piece, I realized that there's some release, and that's also part of the community because there's 4 colors. So we have to live together. We're in proximity, we're under tension and stress. We have to work this out. So in the next slide, I cleaned it up in Photoshop and tried to make something that was more manageable with the 4 colors. And so this is a much better view of what the final piece is going to look like. And so in the next slide, we finished the green. This is, I don't know anything about glass. And as being nurtured as a collaborator my entire life, collaborating with another artist like Robert, it was easy. It's really easy for me to work with another artist. And this was a stretch for him because it's got serious challenges as far as glass goes for neon, because these pieces, they shoot out 16 inches from the wall, and then they come back in and they have these really crazy turns and things. But this color was a really beautiful color. This glass is old glass. It's from the 30s. It's leaded glass. And so in the next slide, you can sort of get a glimpse of the green. It's Veep green. It looks yellow when it's not lit, but when it lights up, it's this beautiful, just gorgeous green. And you can see its placement in that space. And this is absolutely neon. It's in their shop right now. And I go down there on a regular basis to work on these tubes. And so in the next slide, is me, and we finished the yellow. So 2 knots of the entire knotted process are done, and we're getting ready to start on the blue and then the red. And yeah, and that's the end of the slideshow, boys and girls. Kids of all ages, dogs and cats.
Thank you both so much. It's so exciting, not only to see the work in your studio or see the images, but to, oh, am I on mute? No. But to see the way you two conversate with one another and engage with one another is really special, both for me as a curator or for our audience. I think that everybody's really enjoyed seeing the two of you discuss your practices and your collaborative work together, as well as your individual work. I think at this time, we're going to have Allison come back online and see what sort of questions we have from our audience for you. And so just prompt Allison from there. Is it still snowing?
Yes.
Yes.
We finally got rain here in Phoenix. It'd been, I think, like 100 and some days without rain. So we were very much enjoying a little bit of precipitation.
That's good.
Well, so while we're waiting for everybody to either submit your questions or, like I mentioned, if you select the raise hand button, it's at the bottom of the participant screen. We can also, like I said, bring you up to ask your question face to face. Just remember that we'll be able to see whatever is behind you. So that is one thing. Or we could also do audio only. So you don't have to start your video. You can just do audio only. I do have one question that I had gotten ahead of time. And that was, just one second while I move over there. And that was, could you, both of you, speak to the sense of fragility and vulnerability that your collaborative work seems to evoke? In the trade canoe fry bread, it seems that both of you are asking, if all we have is non-functioning canoe and a bunch of fry bread, how do we survive? I know it's a big question.
Yeah.
Do you see our work as fragile?
Um,
Or someone sees the canoe as fragile?
well, it's a delicate structure, perhaps in the sense of its construction.
Yeah.
But
It's very sturdy,
it's
actually.
really strong.
Yeah, it is.
It's fallen a number of times.
Yeah.
And actually the fry bread, as it stiffens, it gets a little fragile because it starts to flake,
Yeah.
starts to crack, you know.
Yeah.
So there is a concern for debris. But so the fragility of existence, well, yeah, I mean, there is, but it's our fragility. It's not the Earth's. You know, George Carlin once said, he doesn't think that planet Earth really cares about us after all, because really what planet Earth wanted was plastic. And now that the Earth goddess has plastic, she doesn't need us anymore. And so she's just going to shake us off like a scourge. And that's sort of what's happening, like climate change and all these things that we've done really to ourselves, because there's a lot of other creatures that will survive, i.e. cockroaches and, you know, any other various species will.
Oh, they're going to take over the planet. And look, I remember, I can't remember who the artist was. I think it was a German artist who always used fresh potatoes and brought them into the museum. And then, you know, flies came and stuff, and then they would have to.
That wasn't Boyce, was that Boyce?
It
No.
wasn't Boyce, no.
Oh.
But he did a lot of stuff like that too.
Sure. That
And then
seems
I
like
remember I had a dealer in Santa Fe one time, Bill Benton, who was a poet. And I remember him telling me that when he lived in New York, he went every day to MoMA to see a Jackson Pollock painting on paper where he had used like cheap house paint that was oily, left an oily stain.
So you wanted to
And
see how
like,
it changed?
And they always told us at school, you know, not to use stuff like that,
Right.
not to do fry bread in, you know, in a little,
I know my school told me
little
that.
fragile, you know, vessel
Right.
like we're doing. They told us not to do that in school,
Yeah.
and we did it anyway.
It's going to biodegrade.
And exactly.
Yeah.
And he did the same thing. Jackson Pollock did that. And Bill Benton said, like, I know that's not going to last forever.
Right.
So I want to go there every day on my lunchtime and see it before it just completely disintegrates. And
We
I thought,
we
"Boy,
digress.
that's really great.
I was
No.
moving a Larry
Yeah.
Rivers painting one time, one of the Dutch masters.
Yeah.
And when it showed up to the shop, I was working for Art Handlers in Santa Fe, and it showed up in a bag. And I was like, why is this painting in a bag? You know? And then I look at the bottom of the bag, and it's like all the pieces of the painting, like parts of the box and tape, Scotch tape and glue. And like, as we got into it, you could see that people had like repaired it at every stop. Like people were trying to, you know, put things back on and
Yeah.
just get it out of their warehouse to the
Yeah.
next stop, you know?
Well, they say that about Rauschenberg too.
Sure. Yeah.
You know, the newspaper crumples up and
Yeah.
falls off, and you know.
But I would say if there is a fragility, it's with the existence of the human species, that we are the ones in trouble and not the earth and
Yeah.
not the other
And not
residents.
the artwork. We don't worry about the artwork. I mean, you know, there was a story that I forget who told me this story, but that you know, tribes were asking for a lot of things back, especially with NAGPRA. And there was in Oklahoma, the government returned this set of leather, what they call dolls, but we know they were, you know, like they were small, handmade things that were probably used maybe for praying or something.
Oh, like
but when-
bundles or something or numbskulls.
Yeah, when they
or-
come,
Yeah.
when they came back to Oklahoma,
Mhm.
the tribe gathered around and really studied them and said, we don't know the songs that go with this.
Mhm.
We don't know the prayers.
Mhm.
Remember the medicine bundles
Mhm.
when we were up at Blackfeet? And when you don't know the songs and the prayers, you know, bad things might happen.
Well,
And you don't know.
You
it's
don't know
not
what it
s-
is.
It's not safe. It's
like
not safe.
it's like chemicals in your studio that are
Yeah.
unlabeled.
Exactly.
Like don't drink it.
Yeah,
Why would you do that? Why would you don't know what it is,
Right.
right? You know.
exactly.
And so the tribe took these things and they buried them
Oh, yeah. But
because
far away from where they would
Yeah.
walk. Yeah, because they could be dangerous.
Right.
Now they've lost all their power.
Right.
And we don't know what kind of power they have because they've been out there.
right.
And I remember when I was like working on the museum at home, I was traveling with the elders, and there was a guy, a lawyer in Idaho. No, it was the potato farmer who sold potatoes to McDonald's. And somebody owed him money, and instead they gave him their collection, their Native American collection. And I was thinking, well, if we're going to build our museum at home, a lot of it was plateau and it was ours. And so I was going to talk to them and see if they would give us some of the things back. So then I talked to the elders, and the elders said, we don't want that stuff back.
Yeah.
We don't know where it's been. You know, it's been out there with white people, and you know, and we
Who
don't know
knows
what's
what they
happened to
did with it?
We don't know what they did with it.
Yeah.
No, they said, we're going to make new stuff.
Yeah.
And so don't try to get that stuff back.
Another case in
So I
point is
learned a
Peter
good lesson from
Jemison,
that.
and it was just on the cusp of NAGPRA.
Yeah,
Our good friend Peter Jemison
yeah,
was working with the Smithsonian,
Mm-hmm.
negotiating for a number of years to get these masks back to his tribe,
mhm,
and the museum fought him the whole way. And when he finally got permission to get them, he said, "Can I get a one sheet and a list of the ingredients they've been treated with? Because anything that goes into a museum or it comes out of a museum, there has to be a paperwork about how it was preserved or treated." And they never sent it to him until he showed up with the delegation to pick it up. And so it turns out that, you know, everything's covered with arsenic. And so
yeah,
the tribe said, "Hey, we can't take this, you know."
yeah,
And so they're mad at him. The museum's
Right.
mad at him, and they're like left it on the dock. And they said, "Well, you have to deal with it. It's yours now. It's not ours." And so he went through this whole process of trying to find benefactors to pay for the research, to find a surfactant or create a surfactant to cleanse these
mhm,
masks of arsenic.
right,
And this process that he went through was so illuminating because the museum invited him back. Smithsonian, like 3 years later, said, "Hey, Peter, you want to come back and give a lecture about how to clean things?" Because it turns out in the research that Peter did was museums didn't know what they were doing. They would treat things with arsenic or mercury or gasoline or diesel.
But the idea was that we had bugs. Remember how they used to cut, all of our aunties and uncles had their hair cut off because they thought that we had bugs. And so they were like treating all this stuff.
Well, anything that went into a
out.
museum, going back to the early days of the museum,
you know,
was treated with something, but there's no
buddy.
records. So nobody knew what was on this stuff.
No.
And so nobody knew what they were handling. So there's
Yeah.
all these docents at the museum suddenly like, hey, I didn't have gloves or masks on.
Right.
What was I touching?
Yeah.
And am I going to get cancer? And so suddenly the Smithsonian is like, geez, we're gonna be in a big lawsuit here in a hurry. So we better figure out what's going on. The other thing that Peter learned was that these museums, when they get these donations, if they already had one, they would accept the next one, but then they would incinerate it. They wouldn't keep more than a certain amount in their collection. So if they had like a certain medicine bundle from a particular tribe, and they would like, and somebody gave them another one, they wouldn't keep it. They would take it in, but then they would turn around and incinerate it. So they were like destroying things constantly for the last 50 years to keep their archives, you know, at a certain level. And so there's tons of things that are lost, tons of things that are polluted, and it's this huge nightmare. So when things get repatriated and tribes don't know what they are, don't know what they're treated with, can't remember who they belong to or what they meant, and they turn around and they bury them to give them a proper burial, to put them back into the earth.
But then
the museums goes crazy.
They go crazy.
They're like,
we're not giving you guys anything back because
you're acting like kids.
You guys,
you just throw this stuff away.
Destroy it.
We give it
So
to
we're
you
not
and you
giving
throw it on the
We have to
ground.
take care of it.
And that's our story.
Yeah. If there are no more questions on
Erin,
this,
did you?
I would like to tell how Neal got his name.
Oh, that's a wonderful story.
Oh,
Please do
absolutely.
share.
How is
He
it?
looks nervous though.
No, I'm okay. Yeah. No, I had my pants on. I mean, it was okay. Go ahead.
Yeah. Well, we for years we went. My cousin was married to a Blackfeet, so for years we used to go to the medicine lodge ceremonies, the Okan, it's called, up at Browning. It's actually out at Badger
It
Creek.
was cousin Jerry, Gerald
Yeah.
Slater, who started the Two Eagles High School
Yeah.
up there in Ronan, and then also co-founded Salish Kootenai, SKC.
Yeah.
And he had cancer. He had a rare bone cancer, and so part of his treatment was chemical, and the other part of his treatment was tribal. And he was doing things with our tribe. He was doing things with the Blackfeet. And so we would go with him up to
Badger
Browning,
Creek.
up Badger Creek up in Browning,
Yeah.
and to the Sundance. Actually, the Blackfeet, the Siksika, they call it Okan.
Yeah. It's not piercing, no piercing, like the Lakotas. And so, but this one year, we usually had beef because they're meat eaters. But this one year, they were going down the road and they saw this buffalo out. There was a white rancher who had a herd of buffalo, and they were all fenced. But this one got out, and so they all looked around, and they said,
It's a sign.
"Oh, it's a sign. Oh my God,
The
this is
buffalo's
for-
come to us."
Yes, he's come to us, and it's time for the Okan."
Right.
And so they got out, they shot the buffalo, dressed him out, got him in the truck, and then we had
They put him in the river.
buffalo
Yeah.
for like the whole Okan, the
Right.
whole time we were there.
There's
We
no
got to eat it
refrigeration up
every
there.
day.
So
Yeah.
the meat was kept fresh in the river.
Yeah,
It's pretty awesome.
yeah,
The rivers up there are so cold.
cold. It's glacial. Yeah, and so so they I can't remember how they chose you, but they were teaching. Neal was in training. They were teaching him every day, like all the elders and the medicine men there. And so you had to dig in this glacial rock to put the sun lodge up, and he was doing all this stuff. They were teaching him prayers in Blackfeet. Anyway, they lifted Neal up in the sun lodge and had him tie the buffalo tail up there. So then on the last day, people come with a pillowcase full of kitchen towels and stuff like that,
Blankets.
because they want to come and get a name for their children. And so it's the day that you get a name, and people would line up. There were lines
And
everywhere.
$20 or $2 or something.
Yeah,
A pack of cigarettes.
$20 and a pack of cigarettes.
Mhm.
Yeah, that they would pay the elders, and the elders would sit in there. George and Molly Kicking Woman would sit in the Sun Lodge, and they would like confer together and whisper, and then they would call out a name: Owl's Eyes, Calf Roper, a name like that.
Scares easy.
No, yeah. And so, but that day, Neal got Inuksois. He got this name. They gave it to him, and it was George and Molly Kicking Woman and Mike Swims Under who gave Neal this name on that day.
So the buffalo tail is at the end of the hide, and so they take the hide, like the entire buffalo becomes part of the entire ceremony, which is like 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And every part of the buffalo is used for those 2 weeks. And the
Mm.
last part that's used is the hide,
Mm.
and it's cut into one singular rope. So it's cut in a circle, and they
Yeah.
go around, they start in the middle and they go around and around, and they end at the tail. That's the
Mhm.
last end. And then they have this long strip of rope, and that's what's used to build this lodge,
Mhm.
which at the end, there's a big dance.
Yeah.
Everybody loves a dance. Every
Mhm.
culture loves a dance.
Mm.
And if there's dancing, people are going to show up.
Yeah, and coup stories though. We had coup stories.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
there's 100 songs, and there's
Yeah.
anyway,
Yeah, there's a lot to it. It's pretty complex.
good times.
Yeah.
Okay,
it
next
was.
question.
Okay.
I think since we're coming up pretty close to 4 o'clock, we'll just ask one more question. I don't think that anyone's quite brave enough to come on camera, so I'll go ahead and ask it for them. Who or what informed your political insights, which are so relevant in your work?
Oh man, that was my father. And I could tell you that when I was a little kid, well, I mean, my dad was upset with the Catholic Church. There are a lot of good reasons for that, because my whole tribe is Catholic. Our whole tribe is Catholic, and so I would go out to different kinds of churches, and they would either one say demeaning things about Indians, because that was the day, 75 years ago. That was the thing, and also, also they would say demeaning things about Catholics. So I would come home and I would tell my father, and Daddy would say things like, "Well, sis, you can't say anything about it to white people because you'll just get into a lot of trouble doing that. But you can think it in your head." And I think that became my path, would be if I saw something that at school that I thought was racism, that I had learned from my father, that I couldn't say anything. And I think it led me into my work, because I could put it in my work. I could put the text in my work, and I could say what was on my mind, but I couldn't like say it out loud. And of course, I do say things out loud, but I'm not that bad.
Well, I just want to thank both of you so much for joining us today, and for everybody out there watching. We really appreciate it. It's been such an engaging hour to, like I said earlier, to have you two so openly share about your work and about your views. And I think everybody's really been intrigued to listen. So thank you again. And thank you for sharing your work in the exhibition itself. For those of you who haven't seen Larger Than Memory, it's up through January 3rd. And will live in somewhat of a digital space after that. So please stay tuned for updates on that. And I'll just kick it back over to Allison. But again, thank you so much.
Thank you, Erin. Thank you so much. It's been an honor to be invited.
Oh, thank you.
Yes.
Likewise.
I echo Erin's statements, and I just really want to say thank you so much for taking the time. And again, thank you to our viewers for tuning in. We really appreciate your support. You are truly pillars of our community, and we couldn't do without you. And you know, it's been such an honor, and we hope to see you both virtually and in person soon.
Okay.
Thank you so
Thank you
much.
so
you.
You well.
Take care.
Stay-
Enjoy the snow.
Thank you.
Thank you.